What if I told you that you could be picking sun-warmed, perfectly ripe tomatoes from your own plants in just a few months, even if you've never grown anything before and don't have a single square foot of garden space? You absolutely can, and it's way easier than you think. Today I'm walking you through the simplest method to grow incredible tomatoes in containers, sharing the care tips that actually matter, and helping you avoid the mistakes that trip up most beginners. Here's something that might surprise you. The biggest mistake new tomato growers make isn't about watering or sunlight. It's choosing the wrong setup from the start. But here's the good news. Once you understand what your tomatoes actually need, the rest becomes incredibly straightforward. So why are containers actually better for beginners than traditional gardens? First, you have complete control over your soil quality. No guessing about what's already in your yard or dealing with clay that turns into concrete. Second, you can move your plants if needed. Too much sun. Shift them to partial shade. A storm is coming. Bring them closer to shelter. And third, fewer pests and diseases because you're starting fresh every season. Now, what type of tomatoes should you actually grow? You'll see two main categories everywhere: determinate and indeterminate. Think of determinate tomatoes as the compact, manageable option. They grow to about 3 feet tall, produce all their fruit at once, and are perfect for containers. Cherry tomatoes, Roma paste tomatoes, and patio varieties usually fall into this category. Indeterminate varieties keep growing and producing all season long, but they can reach 6 feet or more and need bigger containers and stronger support. For your first year, I'd strongly recommend starting with determinate varieties. They're more forgiving, easier to manage, and you'll still get plenty of tomatoes. How big should your container be? This is where a lot of people go wrong. Those cute little pots you see at the garden centre aren't going to cut it. For determinate varieties, you need at least a 10-gallon container. For indeterminate types, go with 20 gallons minimum. I know that sounds huge, but tomatoes have extensive root systems and cramped roots mean fewer tomatoes. What about the container material? Fabric pots are fantastic because they let roots breathe and prevent them from getting bound up in circles. Plastic works too, especially the darker colours that warm up the soil in cooler weather. Just make sure whatever you choose has drainage holes. Skip the garden soil completely. It's too heavy for containers and can bring diseases with it. Get a quality potting mix designed for containers. Look for something that mentions vegetables or tomatoes on the bag. It'll drain well, but still hold moisture, which is exactly what your tomatoes want. Here's where most people either set themselves up for amazing success or create months of frustration, and it all comes down to how you start your plants. The difference between a struggling tomato plant and one that produces baskets of fruit often happens in these first few critical steps. Why should beginners skip growing from seed? While it's absolutely possible, buying healthy transplants from a reputable nursery eliminates so many variables. You're getting plants that have already survived their most vulnerable stage, been properly hardened off, and are ready to focus on growing rather than just surviving. Look for transplants with thick, sturdy stems, healthy green leaves, and no yellowing or bug damage. Avoid the tall, spindly ones that look like they've been reaching for light. What most people don't realize is that tomatoes have a superpower that you can use to create stronger plants. They can grow roots along their entire stem. This means you can plant them much deeper than they were in their nursery pot, and those buried stem sections will develop into additional roots. How deep should you plant them? Remove the bottom sets of leaves until you have a bare stem on the lower third of the plant. Then plant it so deep that only the top 2/3 of the original plant is above soil level. I know it looks weird at first, but this technique creates a root system that's twice as strong and can support way more fruit. Timing matters more than you might think. Wait until nighttime temperatures consistently stay above 50 degrees Fahrenheit. Cold soil will shock your plants and stunt their growth for weeks. If you're eager to get started early, those wall of water protectors can buy you several extra weeks by creating a warm microclimate around each plant. Your support system needs to go in now, not later when your plant is already sprawling. For determinate varieties, a sturdy tomato cage works great. For indeterminate types, consider tall stakes or even better, those expandable tomato ladders that grow with your plant. The key is installing these supports when you plant, so you don't damage roots later. Water your newly planted tomatoes thoroughly until water runs out the drainage holes. This first watering should be generous, often taking a full gallon or more to properly saturate all that new soil. Then step back and let them settle in for a few days before establishing your regular care routine. Drop a comment below and tell me your pro tip in growing tomatoes at home. Here's what nobody tells you about tomato care. It's not about doing 100 different things perfectly. It's about getting 4 basic things consistently right. Master these fundamentals, and your plants will practically grow themselves. Why does location matter so much? Tomatoes are sun worshippers, plain and simple. They need at least 6 hours of direct sunlight daily, but 8 to 10 hours is even better. That southern exposure on your deck or patio is gold. If you only have partial sun, don't worry completely. Just choose smaller varieties like cherry tomatoes that can handle a bit less light. Watch your space throughout the day and note where the sun hits longest. That's your tomato sweet spot. What's the real secret to watering tomatoes? Consistency beats perfection every time. Tomatoes hate being soaked one day and bone dry the next. This inconsistency causes blossom end rot, fruit cracking, and stressed plants that attract pests. Check your soil by sticking your finger down about 3 inches. If it feels dry, it's time to water. If it's still moist, wait another day. How much water do they actually need? More than you probably think. A mature tomato plant in a container can easily drink a gallon of water on a hot day. Water slowly and deeply until you see it draining from the bottom. This encourages roots to grow deep instead of staying shallow. Always water at the base of the plant, never on the leaves. Wet leaves in the evening are an invitation for fungal diseases. Feeding your tomatoes doesn't have to be complicated. Start with a balanced vegetable fertilizer and follow the package directions. Once your plants start flowering, switch to a tomato-specific fertilizer that's lower in nitrogen but higher in phosphorus and potassium. This shift encourages fruit production instead of just leafy growth. Feed every 2 to 3 weeks, and you'll see the difference in both plant health and harvest size. Pruning sounds scary, but it's actually simple. For indeterminate varieties, pinch off those little shoots that grow between the main stem and branches. These suckers will steal energy from fruit production. For determinate varieties, just remove any leaves that touch the ground and any obviously dead or damaged growth. That's it. Don't overthink it. The key to all of this is developing a routine. Check your plants when you have your morning coffee or when you get home from work. Consistent attention prevents small problems from becoming big disasters. Here's the truth that might sting a little. Most tomato failures aren't caused by bad luck or complicated diseases. They're caused by a handful of completely avoidable mistakes that almost every beginner makes. The good news? Once you know what these mistakes are, they're incredibly easy to prevent. Why do so many tomato plants die from watering issues? Because people either love their plants to death or completely neglect them, and tomatoes hate both extremes. Overwatering is actually more deadly than underwatering. When soil stays constantly soggy, roots can't get oxygen and they literally drown. You'll see yellowing leaves starting from the bottom, wilting even when soil is wet, and eventually root rot. On the flip side, underwatered plants will have dry, crispy leaves, blossom end rot on the fruits, and stunted growth. What pests should you actually worry about? Forget about memorizing every possible tomato pest. Focus on the big 3: hornworms, aphids, and whiteflies. Hornworms are those huge green caterpillars that can strip a plant overnight. Check your plants regularly and hand-pick them off. Aphids and whiteflies are tiny but multiply fast. A strong spray from your garden hose will knock most of them off, and yellow sticky traps catch the rest. How do you prevent diseases without becoming a plant doctor? Most tomato diseases love the same conditions: poor air circulation, wet leaves, and stressed plants. Space your containers so air can flow between them. Never water the leaves, only the soil. And keep your plants healthy with consistent care, because strong plants resist diseases naturally. If you do see diseased leaves, remove them immediately and throw them in the trash, not your compost. Temperature stress trips up more people than you'd expect. Tomatoes stop setting fruit when nighttime temperatures stay above 75 degrees or drop below 55 degrees. During heat waves, provide some afternoon shade using a sheet or shade cloth. During cool snaps, those wall of water protectors or even old sheets can keep plants cozy. The biggest mistake of all? Giving up too early. Tomato plants often look rough for their first week or two after transplanting. They might wilt, lose some leaves, or just look generally unhappy. This is normal transplant shock, not failure. Keep watering consistently, give them time, and most plants will bounce back stronger than ever. Remember, every experienced gardener has killed their share of tomato plants. The difference is they kept trying and learned from each mistake. Here's the moment you've been waiting for, and honestly, it's where a lot of people mess up what should be the best part of the whole process. Knowing when and how to harvest your tomatoes can mean the difference between bland, mealy fruit and tomatoes so good they'll ruin store-bought ones for you forever. Why does timing matter so much with tomato harvesting? A tomato's flavour develops right up until the moment it's fully ripe. Pick too early, and you're missing out on all those complex sugars and acids that make homegrown tomatoes incredible. But wait too long, and you risk overripe, mushy fruit that attracts pests and diseases. What does a perfectly ripe tomato actually look like? Forget about size completely. A ripe tomato will have deep, rich colour throughout, with maybe just a tiny bit of green around the stem. It should yield slightly to gentle pressure, but still feel firm. You'll often smell that distinctive tomato aroma when you get close to the plant. If you can smell them, they're usually ready. How should you actually pick them? Never yank or pull on the fruit. Either twist gently until it releases, or better yet, use clean garden shears to cut the stem. This prevents damage to both the fruit and the plant. Harvest in the morning when possible, after the dew has dried but before the heat of the day. Here's a pro tip that extends your harvest. Pick tomatoes just as they start turning colour and let them finish ripening on your kitchen counter. They'll develop full flavour and colour, but you'll avoid losing them to birds, insects or weather damage. Just don't put them in the refrigerator until they're fully ripe, as cold temperatures stop the ripening process and kill the flavour. Keep harvesting regularly, even if you can't use all the tomatoes immediately. The more you pick, the more the plant will produce. This is especially true for indeterminate varieties that can keep going until frost. As your season winds down, don't forget to collect seeds from your best-tasting tomatoes for next year, and pull green tomatoes before the first frost to ripen indoors. Growing amazing tomatoes at home really is this straightforward when you focus on what actually matters. You've got everything you need now to start your own tomato success story, whether you're working with a tiny balcony or a spacious patio. Your future self is going to thank you for that first bite of a sun-warmed tomato you grew yourself. If you love this video, you'll enjoy the next one more.